I just believe that their position is we will do anything and everything to hurt Hamas, even if in the process it also hurts civilians. And in my view, also hurts Israel. And that is why pro-Israel folks, including pro-Israel Jews, need to turn up the heat on Netanyahu, not so Hamas gets a pass. No, keep going after them, but so kids don't unnecessarily die. I want to talk about Gaza today, and the images and reality from Gaza, right? Which is startling, upsetting, ugly, bad, but it's also bad for Israel in every way. And that is why it is time for pro-Israel folks, including Jews, to speak out now. Now, I'm not talking about the lefty Jews who've been criticizing Israel since day one while saying, but look, I'm Jewish. Those Jews hate Israel despite being Jewish. Now, I'm talking about people like me. I love Israel. My mother's Israeli. I know Israel doesn't get a fair shot on the international stage. I regularly defend them. But now the Netanyahu government is proving their usually dishonest critics right. Now, I am not going to use the word war crimes or genocide or debate the definition of what is a famine. None of that is, in my view, helpful or productive. I am simply saying it is clear there are too many kids in Gaza who are starving. And this is bad, and this is wrong. Now, let me also be clear. I am still reeling from October 7th. I am still filled with anger and frustration. But that doesn't mean anything goes for any amount of time. Because here's the reality. There is no such thing as completely destroying Hamas. That is rhetorical nonsense. There is degrading Hamas, which I completely support. But Israel has done a pretty good job of that already. Think about it. Yahya Sinwar, Hamas's leader, believed to be the mastermind behind October 7th, killed in October of 2024. Mohammed Diaf, commander of Hamas's military wing, believed to have also helped mastermind October 7th, killed in an Israeli airstrike in July of 2024. Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the Hamas political office, killed during a visit to Iran, July of 2024. Mohammed Sinwar, the younger brother of Yahya Sinwar, killed in May of 2025. He was probably the biggest, most recent leader killed. He was considered, by the way, a potential successor to Yahya. Very preeminent among the military wing leaders. Marwan Issa, the deputy commander of Hamas's military wing in Gaza, also involved in masterminding October 7th, killed March 2024. Salah al-Aruri, deputy Hamas chief, founder of Hamas's military wing, killed in January of 2024. Look, there are many, many more. Does that mean Israel should stop hunting Hamas leaders and terrorists? Of course not. But it means that now, almost 2 years after the attacks, the Israeli-created situation in Gaza with the lack of food needs to end. Now, international pressure has led the Netanyahu government to implement daily humanitarian pauses in parts of Gaza, some airdrops. It's not enough. I mean, President Trump now seems to recognize this too. This is what he said yesterday.
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has said that what is occurring there is a genocide. Do you agree?
Oh, it's terrible what's occurring there, yeah. It's a terrible thing. People are very hungry. You know, the United States gave $60 million for food, and it's a shame because nobody, I don't see the results of it. And we gave it to people that in theory are watching over it fairly closely. We wanted Israel to watch over it. Part of the problem is Hamas is taking the money and they're taking the food. But we gave $60 million a couple of weeks ago. Nobody said anything about it. Nobody said thank you. But I didn't need the thank you. I just wanted the people to get fed. And we're helping out financially with that situation. It's a terrible situation.
I believe that Hamas steals some of the food. It's not true that they steal the vast majority of it, at least not anymore. There are too many eyes on the ground, including Israeli eyes. Does that mean Hamas isn't stealing any food? No, but it's not an answer. Are you telling me that Israel can't figure out ways to get food in and not give it to Hamas? I get it. Hamas is still a controlling force in the area, but it's not an answer. Now, President Trump sent his Mideast envoy to the region, and today, Witkoff said, quote, he spent over 5 hours inside Gaza, level setting the facts on the ground, assessing conditions, meeting with various agencies. The purpose of the visit is to give the president a clear understanding of the humanitarian situation and help craft a plan to deliver food and medical aid to the people of Gaza. That's a good thing. Senate Majority Leader Thune also now expressing concern this week.
I think that I share the president's view. I think that the humanitarian thing, obviously, when you see people hurting in a need like that, is to want to help meet that need and alleviate that pain. And so I think our government and I think other governments around the world, other nations, are very interested in doing what they can to make sure that people who, through no fault of their own, are being harmed by what's happening there.
Good for him. He's right. Now, you're going to have some who will say Israel shouldn't stop. They can't stop while Hamas remains in power. The answer is, of course they can. Israel remains so dominant militarily that even if Hamas, temporarily remains in power, they can still allow the basics to come into Gaza while continuing to fight to degrade Hamas. Don't be fooled by the all or nothing options. And here's what's happening. Israel isn't just losing the full-throated support of the president and some far-right folks, but of pro-Israel Democrats as well. Wednesday night, 27 Senate Democrats voted to block the sale of 20,000 fully automatic weapons to Israel's national police. In a subsequent vote, 24 Democrats voted to block it, right? Senator Bernie Sanders' previous efforts to cut off weapons sales to Israel got less than 20 Democratic votes. So they're adding support. Democrats now coming out, pro-Israel Democrats, saying enough is enough. There is a legal component hanging in the background. I'm not talking about the dishonest international organizations claiming that every Israeli retaliation is a war crime. I'm talking about Netanyahu fighting for his legal freedom. And the longer the war goes on, the more he can hold out and potentially delay it. Now, it is hard to fathom. It is. That kids would be allowed to starve over his legal case. But the reality is that Netanyahu is fighting charges of bribery, fraud, it's called breach of trust, in 3 separate cases. All of the charges basically center on claims that he was giving favors and support to prominent businessmen in exchange for gifts and for sympathetic media coverage. Now, these cases are not clear-cut, and they are reminiscent of cases here against top political leaders, some of which were successful, others were not. They boil down to, were there clear quid pro quos for favors? The allegedly corrupt deals for positive media coverage cases are the blurriest. Those are 2 of them. But the one that's more straightforward, the indictment accuses Netanyahu of accepting $300,000 in gifts, cigars, champagne over like a 10-year period from a Hollywood producer and an Australian billionaire. And in return, prosecutors say he tried to hook up the producer by pressuring the finance ministry on tax exemptions for people like him who left Israel and then come back. The indictment accuses Netanyahu of lobbying the American government to help him this guy to renew his American visa, helping with a merger, etc. My point is that case is not one where I am saying, oh, they've got Netanyahu for sure. Oh, this is the worst thing ever. No. What I'm saying is, I do worry that the specter of that case and the possibility that Netanyahu could go to prison is leading him to delay as long as possible because he wants to make sure that there is no new election. Now, do I think this is entirely driving this? No. But the fact that I think it could be a part of it is scary. And Netanyahu adds fuel to that fire when he tries to tell us, do not believe what you are seeing, and he denies that there's a problem.
There is no starvation in Gaza, no policy of starvation in Gaza, and I assure you that we have a commitment to achieve our war goals. We'll continue to fight till we achieve the release of our hostages and the destruction of Hamas's military and governing capabilities. They shall be there no more. We shall not have any more of these massacres. We shall not have any more of these monstrosities. We stand for human freedom and human life, and that is not commensurate with Hamas or with the other Iranian proxies. We fought this battle together. We shall win it together.
Almost none of the hostages who've been released have been released because of military action directly. They have been released based on deals that were made. Now, you can make the argument that those deals happened because of military pressure. Okay. But the notion that sort of keeping up the heat is the way to get the hostages released, of course, is nonsense. Now, his second point about Hamas remaining in power, okay, that's a concern. But you can do both. You can continue to try to degrade Hamas while not starving the people there. He's just not telling the truth. I believe there is no policy of starvation. Listen to the word. He said there's no starvation in Gaza, and then he pivots. There's no policy of starvation. I believe there's no policy of starvation in Gaza. I just believe that their position is we will do anything and everything to hurt Hamas, even if in the process it also hurts civilians. And in my view, also hurts Israel. I think about other topics, right, where critical issues, Republicans speaking out against Republicans has much more impact. Democrats speaking out against Democrats. The reason that those comments have more bite is because they have credibility. The argument that they're politically motivated rings hollow. And that is why pro-Israel folks, including pro-Israel Jews, need to turn up the heat on Netanyahu and on our political leaders now. Not so Hamas gets a pass. No, keep going after them. But so kids don't unnecessarily die. And so Israel doesn't further hurt itself, both with the American and international public. Israel cannot live or die based on public opinion. Agreed. But this is simpler. It's about right and wrong. And in my view, Israel is usually on the right side, but not here. And that is why we, the United States, as well as Israel supporting Jews in particular, need to say enough is enough. Need to say you need to do more to fix this. Exactly how that manifests itself, I don't know. Does it mean we stop sending weapons to Israel? Not necessarily. There has to be a way. And look, this is where I think having a Trump as the president has the potential to have much more influence on Netanyahu than a Biden would have been able to.